Women, sometimes we enter spaces and we feel we have to compete with our male counterparts. And that can be true at times where you do have to compete. I think the other side of it is also where we embody the male space and the male form instead of tapping into our femininity. There's power in our femininity. We are not a monolith as women, as people, and as Africans. It's okay to be different, just don't be disrespectful. And I think for me, the disrespect is the biggest thing. Because while I might not be Nsiki and Nsiki is not me, that doesn't mean I get to disrespect your experience, who you are, your beliefs, and where you're going with it.
What are the corporate hands going through?
I think it's typical. The inappropriate advances, pay disparity. If you're a person of color, you deal with people doubting your qualifications.
In a world where Africans have lost their roots, it has become of vital importance to document our ways. In an effort to reverse the brainwashing of the past, where we were made to believe our ways are demonic, we are pressed to create dignified and respectful platforms to unpack our spiritual ways.
The views and opinions expressed in this episode are those of the guest and do not necessarily reflect the beliefs or position of this channel, its hosts, or affiliates. This podcast is a platform for open discussions and exploration of various perspectives, including controversial and unconventional ideas. We encourage viewers to think critically, do their own research, and form their own opinions. The content is for informational and entertainment purposes only and should not be taken as fact, advice, or an endorsement of any specific viewpoint. Viewers' discretion is advised.
Umoya Ulight, Umoya Ubright. Welcome to another episode of MOYA Podcast. Thank you so much for all the support you're giving us, guys. We see the numbers are growing. Even on social media, we see you guys are starting to discover the channel. Please remember to share it with everybody because let's make this a collective learning. As usual, you're going to get the education that you're not going to get at the LUNGU schools. In African culture, women are important. We are important. So we're going to have an entire episode with LUCIA LUNGU to unpack the feminine spirit, just womanness.
Just womanness, absolutely.
Womanness.
And camaraderie.
So what is it? Yes.
So for me, it comes from the pouring in of all the women in my life. I'm not a monolith. I didn't come from nowhere. I have a village, a massive village. And that starts with my mom, my grandmothers. You know, one is late, unfortunately, but fortunately, I do have one who's still with us. And just that wealth of knowledge and love, it's never failed me. It's never steered me wrong. And even with the sisterhoods I've established over the years, you know, one such sisterhood came with Khaled Owe, as we both know, lovely person and human being, but also in tune with just humanity. Always seeking to make those connections as a human being and make you feel welcome. So even when I've faltered or I've felt unloved or just misguided, I've always had sisters and feminine energy around me. And I come from a big family, which is great. I'm number 6 of 7.
Sure.
2 brothers, 5 girls, so they're dominated, really, really dominated. But, you know, it's also that impact that has helped me come into my own as a person, which is not easy to do, as you know, in life.
So let's talk about that, the whole sisterhood thing, because a lot of the time they say women hate each other. So can we unpack? Because you know,
it does happen. It does happen, and I do understand where that would come from. You know, in my own experiences, I was in formal employment at a certain point about 10 years ago, and I had a terrible experience with women. And this wasn't, you know, I can't even attest it to white women at all. It was our own, where you have competitions that shouldn't exist in terms of us building each other in an organization that's built on, you know, humanity, allegedly. And I felt incredibly bullied and broken. And it wasn't until, I think recently, a few months back, where it started to dawn on me the impact and the trauma of that experience and that bullying. And it only came out once, you know, I started to open up to new women and see that there actually is a sisterhood. There are people who champion you, who want to mentor you, who want to guide you, and want to grow with you. And it's not always a competition. In fact, it's never a competition. You are your own competition. But a lot of the time, because of the social media facades that we surround ourselves with, we drown ourselves. And you find that, I find for myself, I'm kinder to other people than I am to myself. That internal dialogue is also a big part of the problems I face. But coming into your own and having that village is what will actually help you rise from those ashes and stand on your own 2 feet. So I find that very helpful for me.
Okay, so on here, we allow you to just, I'm going to listen. And I want to understand what work you do.
Okay.
What does it mean and everything.
Okay, so my background is in logistics. I'm a perpetual student. I never stop. So right now I've got a pending LLB that will come at some point. I have entered the facilitation space by happenstance. It wasn't really something I thought about doing, but it came across me, and I don't like to say no if that's the case. And through those avenues, I've had the pleasure, and it's not just women, I've had the pleasure of having some of the greatest mentors I can ever imagine. Advocate Semenya, Ishmael Semenya, SC, of course, Uncle Selo, it's all one family, but it just goes to show you what family can do. So I always say to people, while I was born in Zambia, raised in South Africa, I've had the pleasure of growing into my Africanness through those connections in terms of building my family. So I've been adopted by the Semenyas, which is it's a great place to be in. I have Khale, as I've spoken about, who has started the Matriarch Professionals, which is just, it's a professional space for women.
Mm-hmm. What do you mean?
So it's exclusively for women at this point in time, because what we're trying to do is create a safe space for professional women to grow and a network to span into an array of, professionals. It's not limited to logistics. It's not limited to, whether it's law, agriculture. We have Chef Noni, who's phenomenal. You've had her on your show. We have the phenomenal, I'm in love with this woman, I swear. Her name is Barbara Lawrence Stradham. She's just this wealth of energy and knowledge and just inspiration. She never says die. She doesn't conform to anything, but it works. And we've developed this network that just, we have our monthly meetings. And in those meetings, it's always, how do we grow from this one idea? If we're dealing with logistics always spans into something else. How do we support each other? What spins off in those ideologies from those meetings? And then you find, well, now we're just friends and we're family. I actually don't have friends. I have family. That's what it is. And if I'm being honest, I find that more valuable.
Please unpack why women in corporate would feel that they need some sort of organization. Why did you do that? What's the purpose of it?
Yeah. So I think, especially from our founder, I think she's noticed there's a trend where women, sometimes we enter spaces and we feel we have to compete with our male counterparts. And that can be true at times where you do have to compete. I think the other side of it is also where we embody the male space and the male form instead of tapping into our femininity. There's power in our femininity. We're not meant to think the way men think. We're not built to function along those lines. And so what we've ended up seeing is that the feminine touch is a unique touch, but it's also helped enterprises grow beyond any expectations. They always say women are emotional, but on the other side of the spectrum, it's men are passionate. Why can't that passion be attributed to women? Why is it exclusively to men? So it's just developing the positivity of the femininity, because a lot of the time it's used to negate our achievements and our capabilities, and that's not the case. So I think that was the idea behind her founding this whole movement and giving us that safe space, because it ultimately is a safe space for us.
Okay, unpack some more. Because
the safe
this
space.
Is your space to say what it means to you.
For me, it's definitely given me a home and an understanding of growth whether in corporate or developing my own business structures and strategies and ideas over time. I think what the mistake I've always made is trying to conform.
Into the masculine. Yeah.
Firstly, but secondly, also just to not ruffle any feathers. Because if you ruffle feathers, that's not always received well. She's competing with such and such. You're competing with the boss. Who do you think you are? But at the same time, I am exactly who I think I am. That's why I'm here. And it's okay to be appropriately inappropriate. I think that's one of the things. To be able to stand and take those opportunities and say, no, I'm here now. This is me. This is what I bring to the table. This is why you hired me. And I'm not backing down. Unfortunately for you, maybe, but let's grow. There's no point for stagnation. And that growth comes from being appropriately inappropriate at the given time.
I hear you. So what are some of the challenges? Because I'm trying to understand why you would need to have this formation.
The formation. Because it's an all-boys club. People always say this is a male-dominated industry, but isn't that every industry, considering where women are coming from? So if you don't have a place where I can identify with Nsiki and say, you know what, this is what I experienced, and you would automatically understand it without me having to explain, no, it wasn't my fault, I didn't intend that. You automatically understand it as a woman because from your own experiences, you can readily identify these scenarios that have played out, the sabotage and whatever else goes on. You know, as a woman, you instinctively know, but we also understand that there are other challenges that come with being a woman and the expectations. You have to be a wife, you have to be a mother, you have to cook, clean, still do your 9-to-5 corporate and expected to be this superstar at home, superstar at work. When does your balance come? When does your peace arrive? It doesn't, does it? But when you have the safe space, you have that ability to say, okay, I see what Nsiki is doing here, so I can borrow from this, I can learn from this, and I can then find comfort in what I'm doing. Because a lot of the time it's not judgmental. There is no judgment. If I'm struggling, it's okay to struggle. I find that, in fact, in our struggles, we're able to actually find better solutions. Because I might just be, I'll take a nap. And Nsiki will say, no, let's take a walk. Because you need to actually exercise your everything about your being. You need to exercise in order to stimulate some sort of thought process as opposed to giving up. And that's the one thing I think in the matriarch professionals is never say die. I got comfortable hiding behind Khale, and she'll push me every single time. I always tease her and say she bullies me, but it's because it's for my own good. I can hide in plain sight, and I've learned how to do that, but that's because of the corporate space. But should we be doing that as women? No. It's not going to help us. We're never going to grow. That's when you hear stories of, well, I was in the same job for 30 years, I didn't like it, but I need to pay the bills, as opposed to you actually enjoying what you do and living. So,
is there any spiritual underpinning to this movement?
Absolutely.
Yes. So
absolutely.
Unpack the feminine, the divine feminine.
So it's interesting because Khale is very much your traditional African culturalist woman, which I love. I didn't always have the most pleasant experiences with African culture because I felt that sometimes people used it to almost suppress my voice, to say, oh no, women don't do that. That's not how we behave. And then when I look at how she embraces it and how she teaches her own daughter, it's more so from a place of love. Like, look how beautiful this can be. Look how at peace we can be. And you find that through our own individual experiences, but also coming together, I can now understand who Nsiki is. I see the beauty in your culture, in who you are, and also the subcultures that come to play from our own interactions. Now we've developed this culture of, we always enter with, Barbara has what do you call it? An entrance. It's a song of praise that the Zulu made for her, and it's so beautiful to hear. I wish I had one. But at the same time, it's just one of those things where I'm Christian, but I've never truly understood all these facets. And now that I'm coming into that space, it's inspiring. It's a breath of fresh air. And it takes away those negative stereotypes of, oh no, if you don't conform, then you can't sit in this space. That doesn't happen. It's just one of those things where let's all talk it out and let's figure it out and come to my house, see what I do. Come to this space, see what I do. And it's beautiful.
What is the importance of women being together, the sisterhood? How can it play out in other places?
Support. I think we all have different initiatives. Some are more passionate about children and education and getting them into, the STEM skills. For instance, the matriarch professionals took a group of students to the telecoms in Hartepies, and just to see how passionate they are about educating children. I think on the weekends, Khale herself tends to teach children in Alexandra, math and science and all these things, and it's giving back. I give back in different ways, Barbara will give back in different ways, Khale gives back in different ways, and it's always great to support each other because that's how we grow. Sometimes it's not always using the social media traditional methods because I think it muddies certain waters. People placate to trends, which isn't always a positive thing. I don't think that everything needs to be publicized. I do think that we do need to grow in our awareness of those things, and that has helped us as well.
So tell me, when you were coming to visit us here, what was it that was burning you that you wanted to express?
I think for me, it's more so understanding that we are not a monolith as women, as people, and as Africans. It's okay to be different, just don't be disrespectful. And I think for me, the disrespect is the biggest thing. Because while I might not be Nsiki and Nsiki is not me, that doesn't mean I get to disrespect your experience, who you are, your beliefs, and where you're going with it. I think there's space for everyone, and the growth of, or the true essence of anyone's being and understanding comes from their ability to embrace the other, the quote-unquote other. And the other isn't bad, it's not wrong. Your way of being an African might not be my way of being an African, but it's not wrong. We should be able to have those conversations without the disrespect, without the, I need to outshine you, you need to outshine me. There is no competition. Be you, love it. Stand in that truth and be unapologetically yourself, and you will win.
When you're talking about us and our differences as women, which were not one thing, and then you were speaking about African culture, right?
Yeah.
One of the things that comes to the fore, which the hair issue.
Yeah.
That's where we would meet each other at different points,
Yeah.
right? So that's what you're kind of trying to get at.
But it's all of it. It's not just the hair issue. I think the hair issue just tends to play out more, but it comes from deeper things. For instance, colorism is also a big thing.
Yes.
Sometimes you have the situation where you say black is beautiful, but how are you saying black is beautiful when you're negating someone's blackness because it doesn't subscribe to your understanding? So for instance, black women are beautiful. The darker you are, you're seen as this beautiful person. But the darker you are, you're also masculated. You're also seen as a man. And then lighter skinned men are seen as not as masculine.
Yes.
And it's just so strange to me because how does that make sense? You know what I mean? It doesn't make sense. If we're saying that we're embracing the African, then the African is not one thing. It can never be one thing. We're forever evolving as a species, right? And as a people, even our cultures evolve over time. There are things that we do now that our ancestors never imagined possible. Not for lack of imagination, but those things, just society wasn't built that way. So, when it comes to the hair issue, I always laugh and I say, I do whatever with my hair. Sometimes I have dreadlocks, sometimes I have braids. Sometimes my hair is out and it looks a mess, sometimes it doesn't. I don't know what you want from me, but I show up as who I feel as being that day. So if I feel like combing my hair, you will get combed hair that day. I have nothing against, if you want to have a pink wig on, go ahead. But don't disrespect the woman who doesn't have that pink hair just because you have a set form of beliefs. That doesn't work for me at all.
What are some of the issues as women, like we're saying, colorism, the hair issue? What are some of the other issues that we're facing?
I think it's also it's difficult to describe, but when you walk into corporate, right? there's typically a certain aesthetic that they want you to have in certain spaces, right? And that comes down from head to toe. It's how you dress. It's how you present yourself. So typically, the leeway you are given is after tenure. You know what I mean? So I can walk in wearing chitenge, but how is that chitenge presented, right? It cannot just sit as maybe in daishiki format because that might not be received. They'll say to you, well, you know, the German clients are coming, for instance. This might not be professional because it's other, as opposed to people understanding that other isn't bad. It's just different, and different can be a good thing. It shows your ability to diversify. And maybe some certain spaces don't allow for diversity. We can understand that. There are certain instances where, you know, if you walk into a courtroom and you're an advocate, you must adorn the robes. You know, you can't just walk in there with pink robes. That doesn't work. But for the most part, there isn't a reason why we cannot embrace ourselves as we stand, insofar as I am not hurting anyone, I'm not being offensive. And offense can be taken by anyone in any which way format, but I think in a realistic way. And we all understand what that is. I think we just don't give each other enough grace. And as Black women, we don't get that grace. But we often have to give it. We're seen as saviors, we're seen as mothers. You know, I don't know if you've seen on TikTok recently, there's a trend where white people have been teaching their children to always look, if you're ever in danger, look for a Black woman. She'll always save you. And then there was a lady who came on and said, absolutely not. Because that's a potential dangerous situation for me if someone misinterprets why I'm with said child. What do we do with that?
Yo, that's deep.
It is. But it can also be, we all can automatically see where the danger would be in that situation.
But that is so, I think what's hurting me from this trend is the placement of the Black woman to be
So
of
it's
service.
convenient.
Yeah.
So
We're always
savages.
housekeepers.
We're savages
Yes.
in one light, but we're also saviors in the same light. But at the same time, we should know our place behind
Wow.
what should be there,
And also behind the white woman.
which is where our place should be. So it's, you know, there's a hierarchy in a lot of people's minds. And even in South Africa, that hierarchy still exists in a lot of people's minds. You see it in pay disparities. We still have that.
Whoa.
So what do? Safe spaces. You have to create safe spaces to be able to navigate, because sometimes you don't have the tools to navigate that space. But if Nsiki has been through it and she knows structures and how to, you know, protect yourself, protect your job or your business, those are valuable exchanges that can happen. And we grow from that. And also sometimes maybe we just develop our own businesses and keep to ourselves. But that's not always practical. It's impractical, basically.
Earlier on, you spoke about the bullying that you experienced from other women.
Yeah.
What do you think causes that? Because a lot of us women complain about the same thing of bullying.
In my case, I think I come across as, so initially I was always a very, very, very confident person. And that experience did knock my confidence in that I just learned how to hide in plain sight. So I think the bullying for me came from, oh, she thinks she's better. You know, at that time I was an intern. So I wasn't even earning a fraction of what they were earning at that time. But I think what ends up happening is people have a belief of, they have these preconceived notions of who you are as a person, or she thinks she's better, or because, you know, she comes from this type of family, she has these type of connections, who does she think she is? Maybe we need to show her who she is not, you know, but at the same time relying on my skills to build this machine. I'll call it a machine at this point, because it in the public eye, that machine is built on humanity and service to others. But I didn't feel as though those were the core values within the entity. You know, people did very strange things, you know, even inappropriate advances from from men. It's a typical thing. Insinuations and all these things. And because my confidence took such a knock, I washed my hands clean and said, I'll do my own thing. So what did I do? I started hustling, and I started to hustle like a man. I saw my brother do it, and he's successful at it. And it works for the most part, but it wasn't true to who I was. And that's where, I think my anxiety just peaked at that point, because when you've come from such bullying and now you're going to this hyper-vigilance of, I must survive. What's the next thing? I didn't know how to rest or to take a minute and just, meditate even and breathe. I didn't know how to do that, because the minute I'm a perpetual student as well, so I'm always in school. So the minute school is over, I'm like, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? What's the next thing? And I panic, because how dare I rest? I haven't achieved what other people have achieved. And then again, there's social media. You look at your friend, Nsiki went to school with me, Nsiki's doing this, why aren't I doing this? And sometimes Nsiki is lying, you know what I mean? And you don't always have the foresight to understand that social media is
perception.
It's always
lies.
perception. Of course, all the time. I mean, even with the filters, you always have to find the best angle, and then you start to apply it to say, okay, this is what it is across the board. And so even from growing from that situation of bullying and coming out into doing my own thing, and I found my own stride eventually, but it did take 10 years for me to stop hiding and to stop being scared. But that fear only went away once I had the support and I felt safe with other women. Which I will always eternally be grateful to Khali for that, because she was the woman who was like, we can do this, you can do this. And when I say she bullied me, she doesn't bully me. She's just trying to say, let's go, you can do this. Because I typically, I'll have those false starts where I'm like, maybe I shouldn't. She says, oh, Nsiki wants to see you. And I remember she called me yesterday and I said, I was automatically scared, not because of anything Nsiki's done, but just because it's something new. And that has taught me in the past that comes with difficulties, that comes with drama and trauma. But that wasn't the case. What have I learned from matriarch professionals? What have I understood from this sisterhood? And what I've understood is no one is leading you into the lion's den. You don't go alone. You're never alone. And if you're stuck, we will catch you, should you fall.
So you're sitting there, you're representing the corporate hands, and there's a lot of you guys.
Yeah.
So please unpack some more, because now you're giving us, okay, you're dealing with different things. So what are so what are the corporate hands going through?
I think it's typical. The inappropriate advances, pay disparity. If you're a person of color, you deal with people doubting your qualifications. You could have a master's and your boss has, or maybe your supervisor, let's not even say your boss, your supervisor has a degree, and because of that inferiority complex, they have to crap all over you and what you're doing. Sometimes you do get nice bosses, but at the same time, the female experience will always be the female experience. We are the ones who understand what we're going through. The expectations for us, whether in the home or in corporate, will always be vastly different from men. The minute you are passionate about a project, she's emotional. We can't have that. But if a man is passionate, it's, look at him, he's so driven. He loves his work, he does this, and it's a lot of gaslighting, but it's okay. You take it with a smile.
A lot of people say that the workspace is for women now, and the women are occupying like the CEO positions.
It's growing into that, I think. But I think there's also certain components that are done for facades.
Optics.
Yes, optics. It's good to have women. I mean, how many times do we see people in powerful positions and the minute you ask them to do their actual job, we are all just sitting there thinking, what is this? It happens. And it's not just intrinsic to South Africa, it's across the world. Where, I have siblings who say to me, my boss just sat there looking at me and I did everything. From the top of my head, I had to figure it out. But this was his thing, And this is in the so-called Western first world where these antics have gone on for years, for centuries. So what do? You evolve. and you figure out a way to either survive or to grow into something that will actually benefit you, because it's not always conducive for you to stay in that environment, because you will forever be overlooked. You're the good worker bee. You support the optic we want, as opposed to being the optics. Now, sometimes you can be the optic if fortune favors you sometimes, but not all the time.
So the place of a black girl in corporate is in the support and...
Most of the time, a lot of the time, I think we have grown and we are growing and we've learned to protect each other, but I think that competition still exists. And we haven't learned that being the only black in the room is not a good thing. It's not a safe thing, and you won't grow. You eventually will be the scapegoat.
You're the only black syndrome.
I don't understand it personally. It's uncomfortable. If I walk into a room and I feel very uneasy. Don't get me wrong. I know I deserve to be in the room.
Yes,
but it's not.
The context.
No. It comes across as very disingenuine, because am I here for the facade? Or am I here because you genuinely... And sometimes they do genuinely believe you can do it. Maybe they don't know any other black people. I don't know. But it's strange.
It feels as if it's almost like a ticking of a box.
Yes, it does. It really does.
Because we also get the sense that although the corporate Africans are in these big positions, they're not necessarily decision makers, are they?
Some of them are. Depending on who, I mean, those are privileged positions, really privileged positions. But when you're looking at people at my level, it's not, you don't always have that choice. There's an influence to the choice to say, okay, well, this candidate might be better suited, or, you know, I've been to interviews where you can tell they've already decided, so why am I here? There's been times where I've had to ask that, why am I here? It feels as though you've already decided who your candidate is, and maybe it is another black person, I don't know. It's not always a racial thing, but sometimes I think if those are the antics you're using, I would rather you tell me upfront, say, listen, I'm hiring in Siki, let's just leave this alone, as opposed to putting people through those processes that are necessary. What's the point?
I want to know, Guti, like, the place of the African in corporate, because we know that the corporate space is owned by foreigners.
Mostly, yes.
Mostly.
Yeah. Influenced, yeah, definitely.
So, how is this not slavery?
So, the law student in me will say, well, based on definitions of slavery, but depending on the specific scenario we're dealing with, it can be seen as New Age slavery in certain instances. I think I think capitalism does something very interesting. It's either you sink or you swim, and sometimes we haven't found the mechanisms that work for us as a society, because we are partly socialist in South Africa, correct? So we've learned to adapt and create that intersectionality that best functions for us right now. And I say best because it's the status quo.
Yeah.
I don't know if modern day slavery based on global trends is what we can call what we're going through now. You know what I mean? Because then you have the situations in Sudan and in the Middle East where there is actual slavery in the conventional sense that we know it to be.
Yeah.
But in terms of, it's so funny because sometimes we joke about going to the plantation, meaning we're going to work. And
it's just dressed up very nicely.
Yes, it's dressed up very nicely, but is it because we're tired, or is it because this generation has learned to not just accept the status quo? So I struggle with calling it slavery.
Have they not accepted the status quo? I mean, if we're still assimilating, we don't really have
Are we assimilating
ownership?
though? Because I think what we do is we go back and forth. We pick and choose our battles because sometimes we're tired. Sometimes we're just tired. It happens. And it's okay. Even when you're fighting the good fight, sometimes you are just tired. Whether you're a woman or a man, you are tired. Whether you're black, you're white, whatever, you are tired. And so sometimes what tends to happen is, 1 minute I'm all gung-ho for female empowerment. Other times I'm like, listen, maybe tomorrow I'll be back. But right now I can't. It's just too much because we've got an over-consumption of everything at any given point. Social media has given us that. So, yeah, I don't know if I can sit with it in slavery. Slavery is a very, it's a very problematic term to sit with. But I understand where you come from when you say slavery. It's just very difficult to unpack because it's yes and no, and sometimes and maybes. Depending on the situation you find yourself in, some people will say, well, it's not a livable wage. Is it slavery? Then yes. But what about those who do have livable wages? Or does a livable wage even exist? There's those questions that you need to unpack in every single scenario. So,
I think why Nguza is because Africans, we own less than 1% of the economy, which means that all of us, even the corporate people, we're actually working for...
Yeah, well, worker bees.
Yes.
Yeah. In
That's
that light, yes. But then again, you get into the dangerous space of, if we don't like the status quo, why haven't we changed the status quo?
Can we change the state? Because
take it to the ballot box. I always say to people, we want to complain about society, right? But when we vote, we're voting for the exact same thing over and over and over again.
What are our options, though? When we look at the political situation, it's like... That's why I think people have stopped voting.
Because politicians are more interested in being celebrities now. I mean, I studied political science and international relations. Never in my wildest dreams did you ever hear me say, I want to be a politician, right? And that was purely out of interest and fascination with how global systems work. Politicians nowadays are more interested in clicks, likes, Instagram, and creating a splash. Also, they don't have the resilience that previous politicians had. Some people don't like President Mbeki, but Mbeki was resilient. And he took his medicine when it came, whether you believe it was just or unjust, he took his medicine when it came. Not many politicians can do that. Even when you look at lower level politicians, why are there so many political killings? Because the resilience isn't there. If Nsiki offends me, then Nsiki must die. Why? Why does someone have to die, or someone have to be... why does the repercussion have to be so harsh? Politics is a competition, you know what I mean? It's sparring. The minute we open the doors to the National Assembly, the conversation should end. We should go back to being, hey, Nsiki, what you doing on Saturday? You know what I mean? Whether or not we actually meet up is irrelevant, but it's taken a very trendy outlook on life. It's not what it's supposed to be.
Yeah.
And I do think that if we actually gave them performance bonuses, or we paid them according to performance, then they would work. Politicians would actually do their jobs in a lot of respects. Even when we had the recent March for Women, where were the politicians? I think I alluded to, I had spoken about once upon a time how there are female ministers, female deputy ministers. Where's the legislation about protecting women? And, even just transforming how cases are treated. Yes, it's a big feat, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. We have to start somewhere. There's the DNA testing, that's got a backlog for years and years. So what happens? These people come out on bail, their DNA isn't in the system, or it's there, but it's not recorded. Those are just things that politicians should have been championing. Those are the things that affect your people. But they're so far removed from their people that they don't understand or care to understand because it's not their problem. And I always find it fascinating when people say, oh, no, wait, I can't wait till it happens to their daughters. They don't care because it's not them. Some of them are predators. Some of them are these horrible people. Placing it on their family and their relatives is not going to change anything. Placing it on them even doesn't change anything because, as we know, the resilience isn't there. The solution is kill this person or get rid of them or end their career. You know.
Yeah.
It's
Hey, bas block, you.
Yeah, they do.
Know, you're talking about politics, and let's talk about the women in politics. That energy, right? Because we're talking about sisterhood. Are we seeing this feminine sisterhood energy in politics?
I don't know. Are there any women leagues left? They're there, but I don't know what they do. So I can't tell you. It would be disingenuous for me to say anything because I don't know. You know, typically when we thought about women's leagues, you know, you always, Winnie Mandela, you know, that was always the one, oh, did you see when she came out and she said and this and that? And it's, you know, I don't know. But why do we also only place it on one political entity? What about the others? You know, there are women there too.
Yeah.
They ask for our votes, so again, I don't know.
There seems to be like a patriarchal princess element, or am I wrong?
It's the only black in the room syndrome. I made it.
Yes.
I made it.
Then you gatekeep the other women out.
I don't even think the gatekeep the other women out. It's don't ruffle any feathers because the old boys club won't like it. I think. Which might not
and
be
I don't want to
case.
mess with my bread.
Exactly. The minute you mess with someone's money, the attitude changes.
You guys, oh my gosh. Because I mean, even when Nkosazana was, the women didn't back her up.
Then we ask why. So my thing is, if you're not going to back her, but you are a woman, but you want women, and you allegedly want women, why don't then you stand and be the example? Because you're saying this is your job, you're saying this is what you want to do, this is who you want to be, do it.
Hey, this sisterhood energy, because it's so...
It's difficult.
It's extreme.
It is extreme, but you have to find your places. And that's why I appreciate the space that has been created, because it's not... I think sometimes people come in with the loudness because they want impact, maximum impact, views, clicks, likes. It's not about views, clicks, and likes. That's not the reality of women every day. A lot of the time, a scandal will happen and I'll walk right past I mean, you know, we had certain people who came out of prison who were walking around. None of us would have noticed because we weren't paying attention or we didn't care. So it's the same thing. People want to be seen, and it's a look at me, look at me, look at me scenario, as opposed to look at what I've done. Let's look at the impact of the work I've done. It's more so the facade. Let's placate the facade.
They've got nothing to show, just nice outfits.
Not even nice outfits. It's I'm pretty, I'm pretty, I'm pretty. Look at me, I'm a pretty bird.
Yes.
But what about the substance to the bird? You know what I mean?
Because even this new trend of the political women going into the slay queen.
Oh, they are?
Oh, you haven't noticed?
No.
There's a lot of...
Look, if you want to be a slay queen, do it. If that's what you want to do, I have no problem. Then say that.
But is there no time and place? Because I kind of feel sometimes women, we don't have, hey man, like if we're going to have slay queens in leadership, it means that that's what we're going to follow. So where are our leaders who are not slay queens?
So who voted for the slay queen? Whoever voted for the slay queen must stick with the, you know what I mean? What you pick is what you get. And a lot of the time we want to hear what we think, or we think we're hearing one thing when we're just not processing. Because Nsiki might just say, I am Nsiki, this is who I am. And then it's, yeah, no, she's not. I mean, it's the same with our friend in the Western world who doesn't like South Africa right now. the other man. And he, for the longest time, people thought he wouldn't do the things he said he was going to, but he told you.
Yeah.
There's a guy in Germany in the 1940s who wrote a whole thing that said, this is what I'm going to do, and no one believed him. They put him in place, and he started doing it. So maybe we need to start believing people when they say, I'm going to do this. This is what I want to do, and if you're voting for me, this is what it's going to happen. But at the same time, we also need to understand that there are those who are professional liars. If you've been chilling since 94, and you're still there holding the same seat, making the same promises, that speaks for itself.
You know what I want to know? How do we build the confidence of women? Because not everybody is as vocal as Nziki. And what can happen is that a LUCIA, who's more reserved and introverted, might be overlooked, but she's a powerful leader when you give her the space to open up her wings. So how do we build?
I think I always give the analogy of what happened in COVID, right? People always say, no, we need to reform the police. The police were disciplined during COVID. Did you see them? They were there everywhere. People stayed in their houses. They policed. What did you tell them during COVID that made them police, right? During that time, as a woman, I felt safer. Maybe because I was in my house the whole time.
Yes.
And if I came outside, I might be met by something. But we don't feel safe in our society. And because we don't feel safe, we go into this hypervigilance of attack, and sometimes it plays into other things, including the corporate world. So I don't hate even my former bullies or anything like that. I believe that there's always other things going on, and I try to understand those aspects. So the safe space or creating or giving the space to these women who could be these powerhouses comes from creating safety. And that safety comes from the initial safe spaces that we create ourselves and establishing a rapport, establishing a code of conduct. I have to respect your privacy. Just because Nsiki is on Twitter and wherever else doesn't mean that when I'm chilling with you now or I'm in your space, I can take what I've seen and just throw it out there because I want clicks and likes. It's also about respecting everybody's experience, expecting everyone's existence, and understanding that not everything needs to be out there. Bring back secrets, to be honest.
Yes.
Bring back secrets, but also bring back the respect for privacy. It's gone too far. If a slay queen wants to run for president, do you? Go ahead. I have no problem. If, Mama Africa wants to run for president, I have no issue. But stand authentically in that. Don't sell people the facade. Give people the choice. But I do understand it's marketing. Part of getting elected is a marketing strategy. If I give people bread once every 5 years, they vote for me. If, I promise an alternative to this party that some hate on some days, other days they love, whatever it is, give people the ability to judge for themselves authentically, I think. Authenticity is a downplayed trait. And it's disheartening, but I guess it's the way of the world. It's what we've learned.
I really want to know, Guti, how are we going to make the space safe for women? Because there are some gems that are just chilling there.
Well, you zone into certain projects. So, for instance, in matriarch professionals, as much as, there's a space for logistics, there's a space for law, there's a space for the culinary arts, real estate, social development, those types of spaces, when they develop, as small as they might begin, will always grow. But we also have to take accountability, We cannot have a situation where if I misbehave, Khali must be able to, and the other women have to be able to reprimand me and call me out and say, this was wrong, this is not representative of our organization. And it's the same thing with women across the board. We are not above reproach. Yes, society has been cruel to us over the years, especially Black women, but we have to be able to nip that in the bud, because a lot of organizations come tumbling down later on in life from those so-called small things where it was like, no, that was just a once-off. No, deal with the once-off, nip it in the bud, and set the standard and the tone going forward, so that that code of conduct, it becomes your embodiment of your organization, which then becomes the embodiment of what everyone sees and understands. Because there's no misconception between when Nsiki sees the organization, when person X sees the organization, it's uniform standard, and that certain types of behavior aren't allowed. That then establishes.
Men can have this thing called a bro code. How come we don't have sister code?
We do.
What's our sister code?
It depends which group you're in. You know, there's different types of women. You know this, right? You know this. So the other day, I was upset. I was watching a reality TV show, and I know I shouldn't be because I get annoyed very easily, right? And there was a situation where this woman cheated on her husband. And it boiled my blood because the women in the group were like, no, we held her accountable. And I was like, but you didn't though. You didn't hold this woman accountable. And she's sitting there blaming her husband to say, now if we reverse that whole scenario, and this man sits down from you and says, I cheated, but it was your fault. Right? And you're like, where are these men? What's wrong with your friends? That is unacceptable. You know, men are trash, which may be valid points. But now that it's a woman telling you the exact same thing, that's what I'm saying. There is codes, but are these codes valuable? Because there are men who genuinely have some sort of bro code that is actually inspiring. You know, they hold each other accountable. You know, you need to treat your wife like this when, you know, they talk about whether it's their marriage issues or their Mjolo issues, whatever it is. And they have a true brotherhood and camaraderie.
And they protect each other.
And they protect each other. But there's also the toxic side of that, where you have predators, and it's not just men, predators protecting predators. You see it in families, you see it across. So the codes exist. The question is, which code is for you? And which code best serves our agenda going forward? And is the agenda a collective agenda, or do we all have different agendas? Because we're not united.
Are we hypocrites?
Sometimes. Remember, we're not perfect. We're not perfect, so we can be hypocrites a lot of the time from both sides. And that's okay, but correct yourself when you see it happening. Because sometimes it's unintentional. Sometimes it's, I need to maintain the facade, I am perfect, no one can know.
Because sometimes with GBV, it's always about the man, but we never talk about how the women play into that and how it actually escalates and how we actually do provoke situations.
So, I think it was Penwell and his brother, I think, they had that conversation where I think the analogy they gave was a police officer reported to domestic violence, and the police officer then asked the man, do you want to press charges because he was so battered and bruised? It's called gender-based violence for a reason, because it can happen to men. It can happen to, it mostly predominantly happens to women, yes. It is very brutal and sometimes a lot of the time fatal for a lot of women, as we've seen. There are countless names on this list. The fact that there is a list is a problem. But South Africa is not unique. This happens across the world. That doesn't mean we should accept it. I think my stance has always been, even with my nieces and my nephews, is keep your hands to yourself. We have to be human beings at the end of the day. Just because I am a woman and in my household, my parents raised my brothers never to put their hands on their sisters, does not mean that other people have been taught those lessons or embody those lessons, firstly. Secondly, it does not mean that this man that you're picking on today doesn't have things that he's coming with. Maybe that was the straw that broke the camel's back. And me slapping him in the face was just the end of it. Maybe he's been abused by his own friends
and peers. Why are you slapping him?
Exactly. No, but that's the thing. Keep your hands to yourself. Because you never know what someone is dealing with and also what it takes for someone to snap. There's always a psychological component and an emotional component. You don't know what has been building in someone's life before they snap. That's why, we always have psychologists on hand. I mean, even in prisons, psychologists are always there. Correction spends a great deal amount of money on psychologists for this reason, because we're trying to understand the criminal mind. But sometimes the criminal mind has been cultivated by us as society.
Yes.
Sometimes we teach our young boys that, oh no, when mom so-and-so touched you, that means you're a man. No, he was sexually assaulted. That is not okay. I don't think you should keep those secrets in the family, because you emotionally stunt people, and they go out to be emotionally stunted adults who go out to be emotionally stunted individuals with emotionally stunted behavioral patterns that then are detrimental to society as a whole, and that's not okay. So we do have to take accountability, whether men or women. We do have to understand that violence against each other is wrong. Our murder rates are too high. Gender-based violence is an issue, but let's tell the truth. Women are at the height of this plight, and it's not okay. We are targets for some reason. Where is this anger coming from? When you look at rape, we know from, colonialism that rape was used as a power mechanism to make you subservient, backbreaking, where the colonialists would rape the indigenous people amongst a crowd of people, and that obviously has grown into gang rape and all those things. It comes from somewhere. These legacies, they are born, but it's also a trauma response to situations that we have created as a society. So maybe we need to start from, I don't even know where we would start from, to be honest, but
It's so deep.
it's horrible. But we perpetuate it in our homes as well. And even amongst our friend groups. Because the first thing we'll always say is, oh no, I know Nsiki, she would never. You don't know Nsiki, you don't go to bed with Nsiki. Nsiki knows Nsiki, you know what I mean? It doesn't work like that. And sometimes, yes, Nsiki can still be my friend, but if you are my friend, I should be able to say you were wrong. And face the consequences of your actions. That should be the essence of how we...
Code.
Yes.
How we sister code.
Yes. Sister code and humanity code.
As we start wrapping up, you mentioned earlier how the pressures of the professional woman, how you've got it at home and at work. And the men are always saying, what do women bring to the table?
I am the table.
And then how do you guys navigate? Because sometimes on social media, like that doctor we saw, remember that doctor who was buying the guy a car? Some girls, they pay for lobola, some...
Yeah.
So, where's this balance? What's the woman's role? What's the man's role? What's happening?
Roles are whatever you decided to be, right? So I can't come into your home and tell you how to function. If, as a woman, you want to help pay for your own lobola, go ahead. It's none of my business. I don't live there with you, right? I think we have to, where it comes to balance, you have to start with self. Learning when to take stock of what it is you are doing, where you're going, and how you plan to get there. Because there's no point in getting to this quote-unquote destination depleted. You don't know where your happiness is, you don't know where your peace is, you just know that I needed to make that deliverable. I needed to deliver that project, it's done, hand it over, and that's it. It's not a tender. This is your life. And best believe, should you drop dead today, 20 minutes from now, your position is advertised. So, I think balance is very specific to every individual. I do think we need to take stock of our mental health. I haven't always been good at that myself. I panic when I've got nothing, and I need those quiet times. I'd never learned how to sit in my discomfort, so I would always overcompensate. I was the friend you call at 3 a.m, I would wake up and be like, what's happening? Let's cry together. You know what I mean? And I didn't always get that. And I was like, no, but I do that, so why can't you, And it doesn't work like that. You have to take stock and be kind to yourself. Your internal dialogue is very important. I think meditation, whatever meditation works for the individual, some people pray, some people sit in silence, some people do positive affirmations, whatever it is. But I think you have to, especially your mental health, deal with whatever it is. It's uncomfortable, but those are the growing pains of evolving into the person you want to be. And they're necessary.
Thank you, Lucia.
Thank you.
It's been a pleasure hanging out with you.
Thank you so much for having me. I hope it helps.
It does. I'm sure a lot of women are going to relate because we carry a lot, eh?
We do. All the time I'll be in a meeting, if you're on
Yes.
Zoom, and at the same time I'll mute and I'm cooking and doing whatever
Yes.
because I've got my elderly parents,
Yes.
They I always joke and say I'm my parents' third son because I do everything. I cook, I change tires, I do whatever, and it's never ending. So when people ask me what I bring to the table, darling, I am the table. I'm the whole building.
I wonder how we unpack this for men so that they understand even
and
their
don't disturb
place.
my peace. If you cannot function with me being the whole building and the whole table, please go away. It's easy. Please, I'm asking so nicely.
Umoya ulight,
Clock
umoya
it.
upright. The feminine spirit is definitely in the building. Ladies, let's look after each other. When you see another woman, you see yourself. And let's just work together because we can see we're under a lot of pressure. Thank you for liking, sharing, and subscribing. Remember that the banking details are in the description box. We do appreciate your support. As you know, this is not the kind of content LUNGU are going to sponsor. So please, guys, we rely on you. We'll see you again next time.
Who are you when all you were has been diluted by lies and white lines cancelling out all that which has been written of your history? Why do you look at yourself as a mystery? Doesn't the sun shine because you open your eyes? Doesn't the moon stay situated within the same stars your DNA sparkles off? Your spirit knows that surely corner into it off. Buza umoya so you may return to being well off. Because spiritually you are rich, yet your ancestors cry because you are out of reach. But yours is to command all elements while God takes inspiration from the very mirror she looked at to become. Remember who you are and never finish just when they think that with you they are done.